How did you...
You've got mail.
All right, we're up and running.
Dude, you cracked me up. Oh my God, this dude he's a throwback, ladies and gentlemen. This is like 1970s radio. I don't know how it found its way to a millennial, but
I got mail. I got to check that.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. You got mail. Oh man, folks, he comes up with this stuff. It's trust me when I tell you, there's no pre-show play.
What's going on, everybody? We're live. Your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, March 12th is just moments away. Live stream chat. What's happening? Frank, oh my God, what's going on? You do have a song of the day from Frank. Hey, Frank, I don't know, man. Watch the language a little bit on the live stream chat, would you? F-bombs and S-bombs everywhere. Your Ben Joravsky show.
I applaud. Frank, if you want to let your freak flag fly, you let it fly, all right? By the way, do I have to tell you this? Can we just take a moment to tell you this?
Sure.
I was doing a little pre-show planning with Rummana, and she told me she didn't know she was allowed to swear in the show.
Really?
Yeah.
I can tell she listens to a lot of our program.
Has she ever said any? I can't remember any F-bombs.
Well, she called me an F-er that one. I'm just kidding. No, she hasn't.
Yeah. Anyway, you're free to swear if you want on the Ben Joravsky show. But Dennis and I have made a vow. We are not going to swear. Right, D? Mm-mm.
Every now and again we will. We just won't swear so much. How about that? Like, we're no Franks. My goodness, Frank. Clean it up. All right.
How about Adolfo? Yesterday's show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yesterday's program. Clean. If you missed it, we had a reoccurring guest, Adolfo Mondragon, on the program. A reoccurring guest who swears every single time he's on. Not one swear word yesterday.
Yeah, he cleaned it up. He was being very distinguished. He was being very lawyerly because he was talking about his lawsuit. So I think that's what it was.
Okay. I see. But your Ben Joravsky show is just moments away. Before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. The Chicago Federation of Labor are sponsors, as well as the Chicago Reader. ChicagoReader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. What to do, where to go, what to wear, what to drive, who to talk to, what politics to think. Oh my God, so much. ChicagoReader.com. Subscribe. Also, become a Binhead. That's what we call avid listeners of this program now, Binheads. You can go to ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky, Jorav as in Victory, SKY, to find out more information. A 3-tiered system we have at ChicagoReader.com, ways that you can help out the Ben Joravsky show. If you don't have money, you don't have enough to, help out, don't worry about it. Just keep listening to the program. But if you do, ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. And you can get a deal on Ben's book if you become a Binhead. We're going to talk more about Ben's book later on, but we have a song of the day for you, Ben. Your song of the day, yes, it comes from Frank. It's an Elton John song. Saturday Night is All Right by Elton John.
Oh. I believe the year was 1973. And that's when this song was a hit. And here we go. Saturday is not all right. Yeah, for fighting.
Okay, all right, cool.
And then he plays the piano.
All right, we're done. The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Friday, March 12th, and live from my mom's apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Jarofsky here. We're calling this Divided States Friday, and here's why. Watched President Biden's speech last night. Got to give the man credit, and I say this as a Bernie guy. He was not my first choice in the Democratic Party. He was not my second, third, fourth, or fifth either, for that matter. But I got to give him credit for really trying. He just had Congress pass a $1.9 trillion relief bill, sending out checks for $1,400 to folks all over the country, unemployment assistance for $300 to people all over the country, money for schools and cities and states, red and blue. Next up is an infrastructure bill, going to put people to work, going to rebuild roads and bridges, the kind of stuff that my centrist Democratic friends tells me America wants. I see you, PC, Pete Cunningham. We're going to bring you back to the show to talk about this. Yes, this is what America wants. And if you give them what they want, they're going to unite behind them. At least that's the theory I've always been told. And yet, it doesn't seem to be working for Joe Biden. No matter how much he reaches out to the rest of the country, MAGA America slaps him in the face. Not one Republican voted for the relief bill. State rep. Sorry, Dennis made a face or something, made me laugh. Sorry. Focus, Ben, focus.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone, make sure the kids hear words.
That's right, Mr. President.
Oh, my God. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the Republicans in the House, says Biden doesn't even deserve credit for getting out the vaccines. Says all the credit goes to Donald Trump. Meanwhile, you got Tucker Carlson basically calling Biden a sissy for putting women in the armed forces. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's bending over backwards to be stirring and passionate and caring and reassuring, treating us all like all of us care deeply about the same thing, as though we're united, as though we're in 1942 and the country were united to fight the wars against Germany and Japan. Oh, President Joe, I love you for trying. But the other side, they're fighting you every step of the way. Biden last night said, if all goes well, every American will be eligible for the shot by May. And if all goes well after that, every American will be able to celebrate quietly with their family on the 4th of July, barbecues and picnics, to emphasize the point that we're all the same. We all enjoy barbecues and picnics, but it'll be small gatherings, just family. And I'm like, Joe, I hate to break the news to you, but MAGA had a 4th of July celebration last year in the middle of the pandemic. Trump gave a speech, MAGA swooned. They held it at Mount Rushmore. Nothing small about it. Hundreds and hundreds of people packed together, hardly anyone wearing a mask. Baby Trump was there. He got COVID. So did his fiance. So you're not going to win over MAGA by talking about small gatherings on the 4th of July. Many of them don't believe the virus is real, which means they don't believe they need a shot. And even if they do get one, they're not going to give you credit, which brings me back to Kevin McCarthy. I had a laugh when I saw him say that. Kevin McCarthy. You know, you would think that at this point, I remember Tip O'Neill, the Democratic leader of the House when Ronald Reagan was elected, and he and Reagan fought each other tooth and nail on a lot of issues. But he'd always have some respect for Reagan. It's like a different era. And I'd be on the other side going, I won't lie to you. I was like, come on, Tip, you're being too nice to Reagan. But here we have Kevin McCarthy. He won't give Biden any credit for vaccine rollout. Says Trump deserves all the credit. I had a laugh when I heard that. Because he sounded like all the guests I had coming on my show all those years. I remember how many conversations I had with Monroe Anderson. I go, Monroe, you got to admit unemployment's falling under Trump. And Monroe would say, well, it began under Obama. I remember that argument. You really can't give Trump the credit because the unemployment started falling under Obama. So it's really the Obama recovery. So I'm like, hey, Kevin McCarthy, you're sounding like my Democratic friends. You're not even willing to give Biden any credit. All the credit goes to Trump, which is such a joke, since the guy was holding super spreader events up until the day he lost the election. Yes, we are divided states. And I was thinking this as I was driving through Chicago and looking at all the people wearing masks and trying to figure out how did they get the message. Everyone in Chicago seemed to have gotten the message that we should supposed to wearing masks. Somehow or other, it worked in the city of Chicago. It's such a divided city, really. I mean, everybody comes from different cultures, different quarters. And I'm not just talking about political divisions, or racial divisions. I'm talking about cultural divisions. For instance, the other day, a story broke about Myers Leonard. Myers Leonard, I don't know how many listeners had ever heard of Myers Leonard. If you're not a basketball fan, we try not to go too deep into basketball on the show, although we spent hours talking about it. But Myers Leonard is a center for the Miami Heat. He used to play for the University of Illinois. And he made some anti-Semitic comments while playing a computer game. And millions of people heard him. And it became a big ruckus in that little neck of the woods, that little cultural corner of our country. Because there are millions and millions of people who watch other people play computer war games. And folks, I have a confession to make. I did not know that.
Oh my God, color us surprised.
I did not know that. Dennis knew it. I didn't know. I go, D, you know that like millions and millions of people watch other people play computer war games? And Dennis was like, duh, where have you been? I'm like, God damn, we are so culturally divided. But you know what, D? I have to tell you something.
What?
A lot of geezers didn't know it either.
No,
Wait a
no.
minute.
I mean,
Hold
dude,
on
you
now.
just figured out copy and paste like 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, it's not
Hold on,
surprising.
you're going so fast for me here. You mean to tell me millions and millions of people, they're not playing the games, they're watching other people play? And I go, yeah. Yeah, divided country, man. So I got to give you credit, Joe Biden. You're old school. You're dedicated to the notion that it's 50 states undivided. Well, close to half the population can't stand you and doesn't want to give you a chance. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain will be here, Chicago Sun-Times editor columnist. She's not divided. She's focused on what she wants to say. And she was aware, D, I had a pre-show discussion, that millions and millions of people watch other people play computer games. But she's never done it. A distinction. She was only aware of it because her nephews were among the millions and millions of people watching other people play computer games. So, plenty of political discussion ahead, plenty of cultural discussion ahead. But before we do that, the young man from Alton, the young man that America is united on, calling Dr. D with the news.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone, make sure the kids hear words.
You said that already, Mr. President. How's it going? I'm Dennis. Yeah, still here in beautiful downstate Illinois, and still here at my mother's apartment. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon, for the fourth and final time this week, we need to remind every single one of you listening, no matter if you're listening live or on the download, we need to remind all of you to download this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews, available at chicagoreader.com and wherever you download podcasts. Let's run through this weekend's lineup beginning on Saturday. Ben just talked about that Myers Leonard guy. Well, we're going to be taking a deep dive on that a little more after today's show. And Ben, why don't you tell us who our guests are going to be when we're speaking with this for this Benny J bonus interview, available on Saturday?
I reached out to two Jewish athletes that I know to talk about anti-Semitism in sports. One is my daughter, Rachel, who was a basketball player and a runner for many, many years. And the other was perhaps my best friend's son, Miles Porter. Everybody knows Miles from this show. He was our editor for, about a year, I want to say, when we were at the studio. And so we're going to be talking about anti-Semitism in sports, how common it is. Is Myers Leonard unique? Is that just something that just popped out of nowhere, or is it more commonplace? In addition to that, Miles loves playing video games. So I want to shatter the fourth wall. He's the one who told me pretty much everything I know about the video game community, the gaming community.
Oh, you're pretty good. You called it the gaming community. Great work.
Gamers and stuff, man. So it's going to be a lot of fun talking to two of them about Myers Leonard, anti-Semitism, the gaming community, and all those issues of the day.
Ben, what's your favorite video game? I got to ask you. All this talk about video games, I've never asked you that. What's your favorite video game?
I think we had this conversation. Ms. Pac-Man.
Oh, okay. Ms. Pac-Man. That is a great game. Still a great game.
It's, I believe, the only video game I've ever played. I went through a period of my life, D, I'm a little embarrassed to say, where I played Ms. Pac-Man a lot. There was a pizza restaurant on Lincoln Avenue in Armitage that had a game in the bar. And Baroni's, I think it was called. It's long since out of business. I used to play there Friday night, go with my wife. Well, let's play Ms. Pac-Man. And then I hurt my wrist and I quit. And not really into computer video games, D. Confession to make here. But I'm open-minded about learning about the community that exists and the millions and millions of people who follow it. So we'll be talking about that with Miles. He knows a lot about it.
Mine's Metal Gear Solid.
You know, I'm writing that down. When was the last time you played it?
Like high school.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask Miles if he's ever heard of it.
Oh, of course he has. All right. It's our Saturday interview. Miles Porter, Rachel Jarofsky, available 5 a.m., fingers crossed, Saturday at chicagoreader.com or wherever you download podcasts. All right. On to Sunday. Well, we're just going to throw up one of the, 900 episodes we've done on this show. Okay. Ben, any ideas as of what you're going to throw up there for people to download to see?
Well, let me first just explain the shatter the fourth wall one more time. There is no fourth wall in this show. We were going to interview Lorene Targos and Byron Cicero Lopez, Byron, the alderman of the 25th Ward. But then we had to cut short that show on Wednesday because Dennis had to get downstate. So we rebooked that for Tuesday. But that left a vacancy on the weekend. And as Dennis says, Ben, we have 900. So I'm going to go through. I don't know which one I'm going to take, D. I'm going to do an exploration. I kind of enjoy doing this anyway. Go back and look and see, listen in on the bits and pieces of different interviews done there. I may pull off, I don't know. I read an Eric Zorn column today that I vehemently disagreed with, but, I may throw one of our Eric Zorn interviews up there just to give Eric a shout out. It's been a while since we've had Eric on the show. I should bring him on to have a debate with him about the elected school board. We're on opposite sides of that. So, I'm going to surprise you guys, and I'm going to shatter the fourth wall again. Dennis taught me, a millennial taught an old guy how to repost video. I'm going nuts with this. I love doing this now. I'm like, he taught me how to do it. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to take this blast from the past. I'm having a lot of fun since you taught me that, D. Thank you. So, don't know what I'm going to do yet. It'll be a surprise.
Oh, who will it be? Our Sunday interview. Oh my God. It's a mystery. Holy crap. Finally on Monday. It's the return of the man from WBEZ, one Dan Mihalopoulos. Ben, what did you talk with Dan about?
We had an excellent conversation yesterday. Dan Mihalopoulos. A lot of you probably just think of him as exposing corruption and incompetence on the part of Chicago Democrats, but he also takes a deep dive on Republicans from all over the state of Illinois. So we talk about the Millers. That would be State Representative Chris Miller, a right-wing state rep from Central Illinois. Remember Dan corrected me on that, D? So I said downstate. He goes, Ben, just because it's south of Chicago does not mean it's downstate. It was Central Illinois. And Mary Miller, who is the congresswoman from a district that goes all the way to the end, the southern tip of Illinois. Who's the one whose famous quote is "Hitler was right." So we talk about them. And then we take the deep dive on corruption in Chicago. Michael Joseph Madigan, the Acevedos. It's a delightful little romp through the corruption of Chicago and throughout the state of Illinois. So a lot of political talk with Dan Mihalopoulos.
All right. It's this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Saturday, Miles Porter and Rachel Jarofsky. Sunday, a mystery. And Monday, Dan Mihalopoulos. It's going to be available Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download podcasts, download them. And while you're there, subscribe. And since you subscribed, give us a review. And if you give us a review, remember, 5 stars only. Okay, here we go. Local news. We begin in Illinois. And we begin with Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Let's begin with phase 1.
Today, the governor was at Loretto Hospital in Chicago at 11:30 a.m. for an announcement on health care equity in Illinois. What's the announcement? I don't know. In other statewide news, Democratic Illinois Senator... What? What's so funny?
At least we're honest.
Yeah, I haven't got the update yet. It was at 11:30. I was preparing the news. I was hitting refresh. I couldn't find it. I'll look for it when you start talking again. Other statewide news, Democratic Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth. She can add another title to her name. Foul-mouthed sailor. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Lynn Sweet. After Fox News host Tucker Carlson, Ben's favorite, disparaged women serving in the military, Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat in Illinois, a wounded Iraq war vet, said in a tweet, "Fuck Tucker Carlson." Yeah, she said that. Other top military officials also slammed Carlson, who in a Tuesday segment featured a profile picture of a pregnant woman in a flight suit as he mocked military women. Duckworth went on to say, quote, while he was practicing his two-step, referring to Tucker Carlson's appearance on Dancing with the Stars, America's female warriors were hunting down Al-Qaeda and providing the strength of America's women. Happy belated International Women's Day to everyone but Tucker, who even I can dance better than. And if you've seen Senator Duckworth, you know why that's funny. She then posted a video of Tucker Carlson on Dancing with the Stars, and Duckworth posted, and we all know it was his female partner who did all the work. Ben, your thoughts?
Many thoughts on this subject. First of all, let me deal with the most frivolous one. Minor obsession I have with the F-bomb. She did not technically say, I won't say it, D, because you know what? I just get finished saying I'm not going to swear on the show anymore? Mm-hmm. So the word rhymes with truck, but it begins with an F and it has no R. Okay? I'm not going to say what it is because I'm not swearing anymore in the show. But she did not say that. She actually wrote F *** K. Now, D, when I saw that, I was like, what could that be? And I was really confused. I was trying to put in different letters to see what it spelled out. And I called Dennis and he explained to me what it was. Like, oh, thanks, Dennis. I smile as I say that because there are still people who just cannot, and I give them credit for this, say it or write it. In fact, my beloved Bright One, I don't believe the Bright One will. Bright One didn't even have a story. Very disappointed about the Bright One. They did not have a story on that today's paper, but I guarantee you if they had, it would have been F *** K. So just minor clarification. Tucker Carlson, I just got to smile. It's really curious, this attitude that MAGA has about women and toughness and weaponry. I was thinking about this because two of the most prominent leaders of MAGA America now are women. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, and Lauren Bobbitt, who's the congresswoman from Colorado. And both of them are gun toters. And they're very proud of the fact that they know how to shoot a gun, know how to load a gun. They know all the different kinds of weaponry. Don't mess with them. They have video clips that showed you do not mess with me. I'm tough. I got my gun and I'm ready to use it. And MAGA, yeah. I remember Sarah Palin was the one who started this. Remember Sarah Palin was really proud of the fact that she could shoot, was it bears that she was shooting? Remember Chris Rock went on, it's so funny, he was on the David Letterman show. And it was it was in 2008. He did this whole bit about Sarah Palin with the gun shooting the bears. He goes, why is Michael Vick in prison? I thought it was kind of funny, D. I mean, Michael Vick didn't kill the dogs. That was the point. Anyway, so they have this notion, this vision, this adulation for really tough women with guns who will shoot you if you cross them and will stand up tall for anything they believe in. And you better not mess with them. And yet when it comes to putting women in the army or the military, somehow they're suddenly soft. Like women are only tough when it's just some random MAGA supporter in Colorado or Georgia. I don't get it. It's like tough enough to shoot absolutely anybody that crosses them. If it's a MAGA supporter, they're tough enough to NRA. You know, they're badasses. Gonna load their guns and show everybody how they are with weaponry, and yet you put them in the military. Somehow they're not tough. It's kind of this weird MAGA thing, D, that I don't quite understand. They're either tough enough to fight and kill you, or they're not tough. So suddenly, if you have women in the army, China's excited. Oh, yeah. That was the point of Tucker Carlson. Like, the Chinese army is masculine and tough and going to defeat us. But they come to this country and they have to deal with Marjorie Taylor Greene and her weaponry, Tucker. Are they going to be able to handle her? So I guess it's a weird distinction that MAGA has. If as long as the woman is not in a uniform, she's tough and you don't want to mess with her. Put her in a uniform, that's it. It's over. China has won. So that was kind of my thought on it. Very bizarre distinction that Tucker Carlson has between women who are just ordinary citizens and have guns and women who carry guns in the army.
So you don't want to jump on a Zoom later tonight to watch Tucker's show? You're lost, buddy. You're lost.
The Tuckster. Yeah, I'll have to miss the Tuckster again. We'll be talking about it with Rummana Hussain. She's got a lot to say about Tucker Carlson.
All right. Well, maybe she'll join us. I don't know. And before we move on from the statewide news, what would a Friday on the Ben Joravsky Show be without him?
From the Illinois State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute, this is Illinois State climatologist Trent Ford.
Well, honestly, if you ask me, I'd say a lot less boring. It's time for Ben's favorite segment, a segment he must have on this program every Friday, no matter how many off-mic arguments we have about it. It's time for our weekly Illinois weather report with state climatologist Trent Ford.
March continues to be a contrast to last month. Average temperatures this week range from the mid-40s in northern Illinois to the mid-50s in southern Illinois, between 5 and 15 degrees above average for this time of the year.
What do we have to eat?
March-to-date temperatures have been between 2 and 10 degrees above average, with the largest departures in western Illinois. This has been the fifth warmest start to March on record in Hancock County, for example, and the warmest since 1974. Several places saw high temperatures in the 70s this week, including 74 in Quincy and 73 in Peoria. This is about 2 weeks ahead of the climatological average first 70-degree day in Peoria.
My God, that's boring. I just had to stop it right there. So sorry.
Wait, hold on.
What? Uh-oh.
You not tell me that.
What?
You pre-show prep.
You went out there. You cut out. You cut out there a little bit. What'd you say?
I said it's the fifth warmest March in the history of Hancock County, and you did not tell me that. A little disappointed, you D. Little disappointed. Okay, I had to learn that from Trent Ford. You're supposed to be my man with his finger on the pulse of what's going on in Illinois.
I mean, I try my hardest to listen to the guy, but I just get distracted and I can't pay attention. Oh, that guy's boring.
By the way, I just have to tell you this. I saw a picture of him. I think Frank sent me a picture of him. Good-looking guy.
Oh, really?
We should bring him on the. We should bring him on the show. Talk a little.
There we go. There we go.
News. We don't do enough weather coverage on the show. They just say.
All right, let's move on to the news in the city of Chicago. No public events scheduled for our Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
Well, still not a good question. But it looks like her fellow city council members have been making the local headlines. Yes, right before the weekend, it is time for everyone's favorite daily Chicago political soap opera. It's episode 396 of A Mayor and Her Alderman.
A mayor and her alderman.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.
The following comes from the Block Club Chicago and Justin Lawrence. 3 aldermen and women are pushing a proposal to launch a universal basic income pilot program, sending monthly, no strings attached checks to a small group of city residents. Alderman Gilbert Villegas, Ben of what ward?
36.
What a nerd. Alderwoman Maria Haddon, Ben of what ward?
49th.
And Alderwoman Sophia King, Ben of what ward?
4th.
Oh, they were all These three aldermen and women would take funding from federal grant money and private partnerships, among other sources, to support the direct payments for residents and families. Villegas said dollar amounts of the number of people who would receive the money hasn't been decided. There's a lot of stuff going on outside of my mom's apartment. Listen to this. What the hell's going on out there?
What's going? Sounds like a rock concert.
Oh, yeah, I wish, pal. Villegas said dollar amounts of the number of people who would receive the money hasn't been decided. He suggested a $500 a month to $5,000 Chicago families for 1 year, totaling $30 million. At a Thursday hearing on the issue, Villegas said he wants Mayor Lightfoot to allocate a portion of the $1.9 billion in federal stimulus funds for Chicago for the program to, quote, go towards working people, the people that are struggling on a daily basis. The stimulus is expected to be signed by President Joe Biden this week. We have quotes from Villegas. He said, quote, we have to get money, cash into people's hands so that we can keep our economy going. The new round of federal stimulus fund would allow the city to be bold, he added. He continued saying it allows us an opportunity to discuss a pilot, and then if we want to expand it and make it permanent and demonstrate to the corporations or the philanthropic folks in the city that we've got skin in the game. I think that would allow for the program to become permanent.
Well, a lot of thoughts on this. One interesting coalition of aldermen, I'll point this out, that Dennis just rattled off. Maria Hadden of the 49th Ward, Sophia King of the 4th, and Gilbert Villegas of the 36th. They're all ideologically, they come from different parts of Chicago. Maria Hadden, the Democratic Socialist, defeated Joe Moore in the last election, so she represents the left. Sophia King is I think she's the chair of the Progressive Caucus in the Chicago City Council from the 4th Ward, just around Hyde Park, just north of Hyde Park, Kenwood area. So she sort of represents what used to be called the liberals in the city of Chicago. And Gilbert Villegas, this is the one who struck me as odd. I always thought of him sort of a conservative Democrat. He was Mayor Lori Lightfoot's floor leader for a while. He was with, he was a supporter of Mayor Rahm when right before Lori Lightfoot was elected mayor. So I was a little caught off guard that he would add his voice to this chorus. And, I appreciated that. That was an interesting development. Maybe he's like the rhetoric of the Jeanette Taylors and the Carlos Ramirez Rosas and Byron Sisha Lopez, the other lefty aldermen, are wearing off on him. I'd like to point out this is not that controversial a program for the Democratic Party. Andrew Yang was supporting a version of this on a national level in the campaign season of 2019, leading up to last year's election. And he was very popular for it. I think he ended up, I think he lasted almost through Super Tuesday. This was his program. This was his signature program. And it seemed to really strike a lot of support among millennials, as I recall. I remember walking through Lincoln Square about late 2019, and there were Andrew Yang supporters. This is pre-COVID, soliciting people for signatures to put Andrew Yang on the ballot. They were very enthusiastic young people who were really encouraged by his universal basic income program. So it's not that controversial for a for a Democrat to be advocating this. But Chicago's a little weird. I was interested. Fran Spielman, her story on this in the Sun-Times pointed out that 2 years ago, I'd forgotten this, a task force on universal basic income in Chicago had been appointed by Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and they suggested giving 1,000 struggling Chicagoans $1,000 a month to help break the cycle of poverty. That, of course, that report was largely ignored. I'd completely forgotten about it. But the general attitude in the city of Chicago when it comes to using dollars, to doling out dollars to help people is this. It's very much a trickle down. The notion is that it's more effective in the city of Chicago. This is how people in Chicago think. If you give, let's say, $1.3 billion to a developer to build an upscale project, somehow or other, like Lincoln Yards, somehow or other, in the Chicago scheme of things, those benefits, that handout to that developer will trickle down and help somebody who's poor. Somehow or other, it'll make its way to that person. But if you give the money directly to the poor person, well, you're encouraging sloth and laziness. It's welfare. It's undermining the economy. That's kind of the attitude in the city of Chicago, which is, again, it's a very democratic city, but it has very Republican-esque, Romney-like attitudes. That was particularly the case with Rahm Emanuel. I don't see much difference with Lori Lightfoot. So, I don't see that this program getting traction as much as I may like it, as much as many Democrats may like it. I just don't see it get any traction because it just goes counter to sort of the prevailing attitudes and policies in the city. In fact, I would say if you gave them truth serum, many of the leaders in Chicago would say they don't want the people living here that Cooper Villegas is talking about assisting with the $500 a month, no strings attached income. They don't want them here. That, of course, was Chris Kennedy's analysis of Mayor Rahm's planning policies. They want to move them out. So very interesting that Villegas would say, kind of encouraging that sort of the leftist ideology of the Democratic Socialists seems to be taking hold and influencing other aldermen. But ultimately, I can't see Mayor Lori Lightfoot signing on this. Mayor Lightfoot, prove me wrong.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
All right, and finally, city investigators have cited 8 Chicago businesses last weekend for violating coronavirus restrictions, including one Southwest Side child play center that had over 100 people inside. This is according to the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, which said other citations were handed to bars, restaurants, and businesses that failed to enforce social distancing or mask requirements. Overall, an agency spokesperson said in a statement, quote, "The vast majority of Chicago businesses are complying with the capacity regulations." Earlier this week, the city's liquor control commissioner sent letters to bars ahead of St. Patrick's Day weekend, urging them to follow capacity restrictions and safety protocols. Of the 73 investigations between March 4th to March 7th, those cited were Kids Empire, 4938 South Kedzie Avenue, for allegedly exceeding capacity limits, allowing over 100 patients. Debonair Social Club, 1575 North Milwaukee, for allegedly holding an event without face coverings or social distancing. East Side Sharks, the name of Ben's gang when he was in high school.
My God.
East Side Sharks, 100 East 79th Street, for allegedly failing to require employees to wear face coverings. Jake's Pub, 2932 North Clark Street, for allegedly failing to maintain social distancing and failing to require patrons to be seated while eating or drinking and failing to require face coverings. How about Luigi's Pizza, 4210 and 4212 West Madison Street, for allegedly failing to require employees to wear face coverings. We got the Renaissance Bronzeville for allegedly failing to maintain social distancing or require face coverings for patrons. The Safari Lounge and Ethiopian Cuisine for allegedly failing to maintain social distancing. An unnamed commercial location, 3306 West North Avenue, for allegedly holding an event without face coverings, and that is the list.
Yes. I got a call, was about was a month ago, for a friend, a text from a friend. You got to go. He said, go drive through Wrigleyville. You got to check out the bars in Wrigleyville. They're really crowded. This is before, I think, the relaxation. And I was really struck by the fact, it's going to sound so naive, there were a lot of people in these bars. So it's pretty obvious that even in the city of Chicago, that there's folks who, they don't view this as a dangerous threat, the pandemic, the virus, et cetera, and so forth. So they don't feel compelled to wear a mask. They don't feel compelled to socially distance themselves. And I don't know what we can do as a society to protect ourselves from them and protect them. It's like I said, they're outside. It's like they're outside the world that we exist in. the world in which people like listen to the advice of the mayor or listen to the advice of the governor. And it's really, I can't really be that mad at them. I mean, Alderman Tom Tunney, the zoning leader of the city council, was operating an illegal cinnamon roll speakeasy. I have a hard time. It's a hard time for me to be really upset at some guy who runs a bar on wherever, 75th Street or 39th Street, all those streets you rattled off, violating the rules of protocol. He's going to get punished. And the head of the zoning committee did it. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know, the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, just reading about the recall effort against him. I still haven't gotten over that. I still haven't forgiven him for going to, what was it, the French bakery. After saying, going to a restaurant, the French bakery, after saying, we absolutely cannot tolerate congregating in restaurants, large groups. It's too dangerous. There had been a spike. So it's just more of the same with this pandemic as the year unfolds. One full year of the pandemic, people don't believe. It's like there's so much skepticism. And I guess in a way, I kind of feel responsible on some level to this day. I've spent so much of my life feeding the skeptical public. I'm so skeptical anything the city says by now, having covered various city leaders and mayors since 1981. Like, I don't really trust them either. So there's just such great distrust in our city in terms of what official people say in our country. And I think folks just came to their own notion about the virus. They came to the notion, well, it really only kills older people, so I don't have to worry about it. Great column by Neil Steinberg in today's Bright One. I'm going to be talking about it with Rummana Hussain about the medical staff at Roseland Community Hospital. 57% have declined the vaccine that many nationwide are clamoring for. I'm reading Neil Steinberg's column. 57%. We joked on the show for the last month or so about how much I wanted the vaccine, how I couldn't get it, how I couldn't get through the computer to reach the appointment center, that it seemed like I was always one step behind. And out of nowhere, I got an invitation to get the vaccine through Advocate, my healthcare provider. So I felt very lucky and fortunate. Here are employees of a hospital. They've had access to the vaccine almost from the get-go. 57% have declined it. There's a whole bunch of reasons for it. So I'm not surprised, D. It's a very fractured, divided country, as I said. It's not just like red states and blue states divisions, not just downstate and upstate in Illinois, you know, the Pritzker supporters versus those folks with the Pritzker suck signs. It's also here in the city of Chicago, supposedly, overwhelmingly Democratic city. So I'm not surprised at all by this. By the way, have you seen a lot of Pritzker suck signs? I need a Pritzker suck sign update.
Well, I've seen a few. I've been kind of in this apartment the last day, but yeah, I've seen a few, like maybe 4 or 5.
That's it?
Yeah, sorry.
I was expecting more based on our last reportage. Get out there more. Drive around more. Get in your mom's car. Drive up and down those streets and all, and tell me, get back to me. 4 or 5? Well, maybe there's hope for Pritzker.
Well, I didn't look hard enough, really. I wasn't really looking that hard. You know what I mean?
Okay. He's already backtracking on that 4 or 5 thing.
Businesses cited for violating COVID-19 regulations can receive 2 citations with a potential fine of up to $10,500, the agency has said. Businesses could face closure if they repeatedly violate regulations. Earlier in March, Mayor Lightfoot loosened restrictions to city bars and restaurants, which are now allowed to operate at 50% capacity or 50 people, whichever is less.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm convinced that half the people in the city of Chicago don't believe, well, maybe not the city of Chicago. Maybe not 50% of the city of Chicago. Maybe 20% of the people in the city of Chicago don't believe they're going to catch the virus anyway. And if they do, it's not going to kill them anyway. So what's the big deal?
All right, everybody, that is our local news. Well, at least that's what I have. Remember, you can download previous Ben Jarofsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews like this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. That will be available Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download podcasts. Remember, you can email the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. BennyJShow@gmail.com. BENNY, the letter J Show @gmail.com. You can reach us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. We have a phone number, 708-658-4788. That number again, 708-658-4788. We've got a lot of voicemails lately. Let's keep it going. Reach out to the Ben Joravsky Show. You can do whatever you want, all right? If we find it entertaining, we will play it on our program. Prank us. Let us know some information. Bulls Trivia. We do that a lot. Jim, where are you at with that Bulls Trivia? Whatever you want to do. 708-658-4788. We would love to hear from you. And we got to tell you, you can become a Ben head. That's right. That is an avid listener of the Ben Joravsky Show. Right now at chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, you have options. By the way, JORA, V as in victory, SKY. You have options, all right? 3 options on how you can help support the Ben Joravsky Show. You can become an Alley member. Become a Ben head at the Alley membership level, and you will be subscribed to the Chicago Reader newsletter. And it's only $5 a month. Boom. Or $60 a year, however else you want to do that. We have a second level, the Avenue level. You can become a Ben head at the Avenue level, and you will be subscribed to the Chicago Reader newsletter, and you will get a $10 discount on the book from Ben Joravsky, the brand new book, his greatest hits covering 40 years of Chicago journalism. You get a $10 discount at the Avenue level and the Chicago Reader newsletter at $10 a month. Then finally, at $20 a month, Benny Boulevard. Become a Ben head at the Boulevard level, and you will be subscribed to the Chicago Reader newsletter, and you will get a free copy of Ben's new book, his greatest hits. Join now at the Boulevard level for only $20 a month. And yeah, Ben, how you feeling about that book being released?
Well, I'm going to hold it up right now.
No one can see it, but go ahead.
Oh, my beloved book. I love the book being released. I talked yesterday a little bit about the first story in the book, which Central Committee in which Chairman Verdoliak is reelected and Alderman Mell acts like a jerk. And I realized, Dee, that it was funny. I was thinking about this when I went for a walk last night. I talked about it last night. There's a portion of this story where I capture Alderman Richard Mell behaving really poorly and badly. And so I didn't write the headline, but they put Alderman Mell as a jerk. And he didn't talk to me for a long time. Many years went by. He wouldn't return the calls, et cetera, and so forth. And I always thought that it was because he mistook me for another reader writer. There was another reader writer in the 80s, Gary Rivlin, a great writer who left the Reader, and I think he worked for the New York Times. I think he ended up moving out to California, but he covered City Hall in the 1980s, and he wrote a book about Harold Washington and Council Wars. There was Fire on the Prairie, excellent book, which I think got optioned. They're going to be making it into a movie or some kind of series about Harold Washington's days as mayor. But anyway, so Gary would cover City Hall, and he did an interview with Richard Mell, in which Mell admitted in the interview that they were sabotaging Harold Washington. This is ancient history, but it's relevant to this day. That they were an argument can be made that sabotaging Harold Washington's administration, even if it was a short-term detriment to the city of Chicago, even if people paid a price for bad services because they were sabotaging the administration, you could argue that short-term loss would be more than made up for a long-term gain. This is not me. This is Richard Mell. I'm paraphrasing. If you defeated Harold Washington. In other words, the notion of Harold Washington as mayor was so bad for the city of Chicago that it was worth suffering short-term losses to get him out of office. So that was the argument that he made, and Gary had it on tape, and he wrote an article about it. It was really embarrassing. It's kind of an embarrassing worldview to have, that you're willing to sabotage an administration, hurt your constituents, if you will, by giving them lesser services in order for long-term, what you consider long-term political gains. And so Gary Rivlin made Richard Mell looked bad, and then Richard Mell was like one of those things where, I wasn't quoted accurately, but he had him on tape. So I always thought, that's the thing. Richard Mell is mixing me up with Gary Rivell. He's got all his reader writers mixed. For years, I'd say, Richard Mell is mixing me up with Gary Rivell. We don't look alike, and we're totally two different people. And Gary had an earring. I remember, I'm the reader writer without the earring. And then went through my old articles, and I saw that headline. And I go, oh, wait a minute, Alderman Mell acts like a jerk. Oops. Anyway, Mel was not as dumb as I thought he was. It wasn't that he was mixing me up with Gary Rivell. And he remembered quite clearly that I wrote that story. But Mr. Mel, I didn't write the headline at all. And another story that I really love in this book, which I'm looking for it right now, has to do with my utter obsession. I've talked about this before with Muhammad Ali and his gold medal. And I probably wrote about 4 or 5 stories on this subject from like the 90s into the O's. And this has to do in 1996 when Muhammad Ali received an honorary gold medal at the Atlanta Olympics. He was the person who actually lit the torch, the way it goes with an Olympics. What you have people, they do the marathon that run into the stadium, and there's an honorary lighting of the torch. Various Olympians or great athletes get the honor of carrying the torch at various stages along the run. So I can't remember who it was, but the final person who ran in handed the torch to Muhammad Ali, and he lit the Olympic flame. And it was a beautiful moment. I know I was in tears when I saw it because Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's at the time. He had pretty much lost his ability to talk, and his hand was trembling, but he could still hold that torch and he could still light that flame. The great fighter, the great symbol of resistance to the war, and just a great representative of speaking your mind and having the courage to face the consequences, lit the torch. And you talk about a united America. All America was united around the notion that Muhammad Ali was was just a great athlete. Well, then they cut to Bob Costas, and Bob Costas was he was the master of ceremonies at NBC's coverage of it. And he said, there's this apocryphal story, meaning it's the legend of unknown source, that says Muhammad Ali threw away his gold medal at a protest. He won the gold medal in 1960, but he threw it away at a protest of racism in this country. But that's just an apocryphal story. In reality, he just lost it. And later on, we're going to make good to Muhammad Ali. We're going to give him a second gold medal to compensate for the one he lost. And this is the strange stuff that goes on in my head. Dennis always teases me. I got all kinds of weird bits and pieces of information up there. I remember Muhammad Ali's book, The Greatest. And in that book, there's a story about the gold medal. And I went back to my shelf and I took the book out. And sure enough, Muhammad Ali has this whole story that he tells about how he threw away the medal in protest when he had gone home to Kentucky, and he wasn't served in a restaurant because he was a black man. It was 1960, and he got in a fight with these racists. It's a whole long story, a whole long involved story, which ended with him throwing the medal into the Ohio River in protest. And so I was really upset that Bob Costas would call this an apocryphal story, when in fact the source of the story was Muhammad Ali himself. And so to me, it was like an example of putting words in the mouth of an icon when he wasn't in a position to respond, because as I said, he pretty much lost his ability to speak. So I spent the better part of a week researching that. I talked to the co-author, the family of the co-author, Richard Durham. He had died. He was Muhammad Ali's co-author of the book, The Greatest. But I talked to his family, and I sort of countered it. I spent a week doing that. I think about my obsessive behavior, and I wrote a whole story, which is in the collection that I'm very proud of, that talks about the way America tries to use controversial people, tries to get them to fit into the prevailing ideology. I saw it happen. I talked about this with Karen Lewis after she died, and it happens with Martin Luther King. It's like they're controversial. A lot of people hate them. They're a little frightening. They're a little scary, but it's like the mainstream America wants to co-opt it into a narrative that contradicts what the people themselves were saying when they were around. And so when they're not around, either they can't speak, as in the case of Muhammad Ali because he had Parkinson's, or they're literally dead in the case of Karen Lewis and Martin Luther King. You take what they said and you make it fit whatever narrative you want, even if it contradicts what they said in the past. So yeah, that's one of the stories in the book. I think it stands up pretty well. It stands the test of time. And since then, anytime I've talked to writers who've written about Muhammad Ali, who know a lot about him, I always have them, what do you think about the gold medal? It's kind of a little mini obsession of mine. What do you think about the story about Muhammad Ali and his gold medal? And more often than not, they'll say, well, it's a made up story. He actually just lost the medal. He didn't throw it into the Ohio River. I said, have you ever seen evidence that Muhammad Ali himself said, I made that story up? And the answer is no. So I'm like curious. It's like, well, then why would you say it's made up? I mean, it could be made up. I do not know one way or the other, but all I do know is this. Muhammad Ali, in his book, said he threw it in the Ohio River. He has never said that was falsehood. He has never contradicted that position. It's just people speaking for him that go around saying it. So it's a mini obsession of mine, D. It's like things that get in my head, and it's hard for me to shake them out. But if you want to read it, I take the deep dive on that subject. It's one of the stories that's in this compilation, Ben Joravsky's Greatest Hits.
And more stories where that came from. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky, Jora, V as in Victory, SKY. It's Ben Joravsky's Greatest Hits, a book now available. Go check it out, covering over 40 years of Chicago journalism. Guys, I'm 37. 40 years of Chicago journalism. Go check it out, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. And while you're there, become a Ben head, support the Ben Joravsky Show, and you could get a deal on that Greatest Hits book. chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. It's Ben Joravsky's Greatest Hits. All right, we're now going to take a break. And when we come back, Chicago Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain returns for this week's Rummana Rundown. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. We are live from my mother's apartment and Ben's attic. Don't go anywhere.
State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute. This is Illinois State climatologist Trent Ford.
How did you if you want to talk about a separate issue, there will be a time and a place for that, but you are out of order, sir.
The Illinois State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute. This is Illinois State climatologist Trent Ford.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.
All right, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana, the Chicago Federation of Labor, and the Chicago Reader. Benny J, take it away.
Every Friday on the Ben Joravsky Show, Rummana Hussain, editor columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, joins us to talk about what's going on in the news of politics and culture and any other thing that pops in her mind. Welcome back, Rummana.
Hi, it's good to be back. Hope you guys are well.
I am well. I got the shot, my first of 2. We'll talk about that in a little while. Breaking news that I just saw it flashed across my phone right now related to items I was going to ask you about. So much I want to talk to you about: Tucker Carlson, Tammy Duckworth, Oprah and the Royals, Piers Morgan, and Neil Steinberg's column that he wrote today about people getting the vaccine. But this just broke, and I got to get your opinions on this one. Andrew Cuomo, we talked about this last week, governor of New York, has, I think, 5 accusations. I can't remember exactly, Rummana, so don't hold me to it, but I think it's 5 accusations of sexual harassment in one form or another from women who have either met him at a party or worked for him. Some really sketchy stuff. A coalition of New York Democrats called for him to step down, and this breaking just literally as you were coming on, Cuomo said he's not going to step down. He is not going to bow to, quote, cancel culture. I gotta say, that really irritated me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. When you have Democrats echoing MAGA about cancel culture as though they are the victims of some kind of, I don't know, like some kind of cultural lynch mob as a way of ducking what they've been accused of doing. I just find it's like all standards have been thrown out the window, Rummana, and that any kind of behavior can be tolerated if you turn the people who have legitimate accusations against you into some of this baseless mob of politically correct faction of Democrats. Your thoughts about all this?
Well, I actually just took maybe about an hour and a half ago. I saw that he said that he wasn't going to resign. I didn't see the comments about the cancel culture. Did he just hold a news conference? He put out a statement earlier. He said he wasn't going to resign. And he said that, we should let this investigation play out. And he denies the allegations and said that if I made anybody feel uncomfortable, I think he apologized for that. But I didn't see the cancel culture comments until you just told me about it. He might have came out and spoken out to the press instead of like a statement. But yeah, I don't know why you would bring that up, especially I don't know what his handlers like. You would think that they would tell him. I don't know if you want to use the language that people who are MAGA putting this out there. And yeah, I also agree with the investigation being played out, but he is being called out. You have to wonder what information people know, or, I'm not saying, obviously we want to wait until like we hear about what the investigation says, but I don't know. I don't know if I would use, if I was in his place, I don't know if I would use the cancel culture term. The latest was, I don't know, I'm forgetting the tally of how many women stepped forward too. I know, it kept increasing. There was 1, and then it was 2, and then it was 3. But I know this week there was a new allegation that a woman said that she was groped by Andrew Cuomo. And for that allegation, there was a police report that was filed. So that is an actual, criminal case file. I don't know. I'm assuming it's a misdemeanor, but so, these allegations, I feel like there's one after another. Like every time you wake up, there's like a new allegation. So I think these are serious allegations given the number of, even if it was one woman, but there seems to be like a lot of people coming out of the woodwork saying that this happened to them. So I think this is something that needs to be taken seriously. I just don't know if I was Andrew Cuomo, if I would use that language. He can say that he doesn't want to resign and that he wants to wait for, the investigation to pan out. But yeah, I don't know. I personally wouldn't use that language if I was Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, well, I find that cancel culturing, the cancel culture language, I'm going to use something I've picked up from my millennials in my life. It's very triggering for me. Whenever I hear cancel culture, it triggers something in me. What does it trigger in you, Rummana, when you hear somebody talk about cancel culture?
It's really funny because I was talking about that with my younger sister the other day. I have an older sister, and she, we have a millennial niece. She's like 26 years old, and she was telling me how she told her parents that they can't say certain things like that to her because they're triggering. And I was telling my younger sister about this, and I'm like, can you imagine if we told our parents that was triggering and that they couldn't tell us anything? tell us to shut up. So I don't know. I think I'm not used to being triggered, but no, I do get triggered by certain things. Cancel culture, every time I hear someone complain about cancel culture, I kind of know what their politics are. 9 out of 10 times. I feel like every time someone's complaining about cancel culture, I'm like, oh God, it's probably someone who supports Trump. And you know what? They're probably, I guess, one of the things that people can say that with, cancel culture are some people unfairly called out. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 instances of that, but in general, when it comes to celebrities or, any notable people who are canceled, so far, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm not shocked. And the allegations are enough for someone to, at least, what does cancel mean? Nobody's saying that these people are going to be, we can't read, like people were saying Dr. Seuss was canceled. It wasn't canceled. The estate decided not to print those books. Nobody's saying that those books are banned. So like people confuse what things are. I mean, if you want to cancel someone, if you want to stop watching Woody Allen movies, that's fine. I mean, his movies are still available. You don't have to, if you want to not cancel Woody Allen, nobody's telling you not to watch him. Some people just don't want to watch him. They're saying he's canceled. There's just different things that are canceled left and right. And, people have consequences for their actions. I don't know if you're a big fan of Mumford and Sons. They're a band. But the guitarist.
No, I'm not. But when you said it, just the notion of me, I remember them from the Grammys. I believe they're the group that did a song in the Grammys and they had rain falling on them. Whatever. That was a couple of Grammys ago. But go on.
Anyway, one of the guitarists, I think he tweeted about in support of this right-wing anti-Antifa journalist. His name is Andy No, I think it's pronounced, as an NGO. He's like this Asian American guy who's just very he's very right-wing. So the band decided to take a break, because people were just piling on. I saw Mumford and Sons trending on Twitter and I'm like, what's this about? And then there are consequences to your actions if you do align yourself with certain things, or you've been accused of sexual harassment. And, the Me Too movement didn't happen until recently. And, even though people look down upon sexual harassment, I feel like I was talking about this with my husband, Mick, yesterday, and he's like, oh, Andrew Cuomo, how could people do things like that? And I'm like, no offense, but men are kind of given a pass for all these years. I mean, you can look at pop culture and movies and everybody would laugh this stuff off. I mean, I think if you talk to any woman that any woman in your life, almost all of them have been groped or grabbed by someone that, it was an unwelcoming grab. That's probably happened to almost every woman So this is more pervasive than people would like to think, or that, I think men are always like, oh my God, how could this happen? And I'm like, the culture has allowed this to happen. It's only recently, even with Anita Hill, she was, she called out Clarence Thomas, but that was this huge, did it really solve anything? I mean, not really. Clarence Thomas is on the Supreme Court. He wasn't held accountable at the end of the day. So I think this was allowed to happen, and it was something that was acceptable in some way. I mean, even though people say it never was acceptable, it was in some forms. There was a wink and a nod, boys will be boys kind of attitude. So that's just my opinion.
Well, the whole notion of cancel culture, part of the reason I find it so triggering is that just I love saying it triggers me. But part of the reason I find it so triggering is that it's limited to people who are liberal or on the left. So follow me on this. When NFL football players started taking a knee, Colin Kaepernick led that movement. And then NBA players began either taking a knee or wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts or sweatshirts, etc., and identifying with this cause. Donald Trump took great delight, and MAGA was repeating it, took great delight in saying, those ratings have fallen. America despises the behavior of athletes who take a knee rather than stand for the national anthem. He was pounding his chest at the fact that his supporters, which we don't even know if it was true, it was coming out of Trump's mouth, but let's just assume that it was true, that his supporters by the millions were walking away from football and basketball because they were repulsed by the message being sent out by the players.
Yeah.
So what is that but cancel culture?
Exactly. And I mean, Colin Kaepernick got canceled by, he got canceled. He lost his job. So for people to act like people haven't been canceled, people have been canceled for doing harmless things. And, these are usually people of color. So like I've said this before on your show, it's only because white people are being canceled now that all the people on the right are going crazy, or like white people with certain views. I'm not canceling you yet, Ben, so.
That would be very triggering if you canceled me, Rummana. Okay? It would be very triggered. So I'm triggered by cancel. We'll move from cancel culture and Andrew Cuomo. We'll probably be talking about Andrew Cuomo for a while.
Yeah.
But
probably.
I got to admit, when I saw that headline, it just popped up. And it's a quote. So he added it after the story you read. But it's a quote, cancel culture. I'm like, oh, come on, Andrew Cuomo. Now, really, it's bad when you're trying to appeal to the mentality of the people that despise you. Like, now, is it going to flip? Is he going to become a hero to the Tucker Carlsons of the world because he blasted cancel culture? Is that where we're at now, Rummana, where it's like instantly all you got to do is be accused of sexual harassment, blast your critics as cancel culture-ites, and then boom, MAGA's going to love you? Is that where we're at?
That could happen. I think that's the way it goes.
All right. Now, please explain to me what mentioned Tucker Carlson. I'm going to need your help. Tucker Carlson is outraged by women in the military.
Pregnant military, right? Wasn't it pregnant women in the military?
Yeah, that's part of his outrage, like the fact that you're going to have to tailor uniforms for pregnant women. But in general, he thinks that the military is becoming too feminine.
Yeah.
And that China is laughing at us. I already mentioned this. It's like Republicans, like they have this, they idolize women who are not in the military, who go around showing how proficient they are with weaponry. They can load guns, shoot guns. They love Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's got the pistol, and then the Congresswoman from Colorado, from the town of Rifle. She runs a restaurant where everybody packs, all the waitresses pack. They love women when just ordinary citizens are firing guns. But you put a woman in a uniform and suddenly what? Now the Army's been feminized. Please explain Tucker Carlson to me, Rummana, so I can, you're my expert on all things MAGA. Go ahead.
I'm actually not. I can tell you, Tucker Carlson is kind of like a Generation X Rush Limbaugh for me. So I never really watched Tucker Carlson. I got to say the bow tie didn't really do it for me. I remember I'm like, who is this guy? And so I never really watched him, but I knew what his viewpoints were. But I feel like it's like I hear about him more and more than I did before. Maybe, I don't know if he's gotten more right through the years, but I know he's been on air for a long time, and he's been on air since he was probably in his 20s. But I know what he was about. It's kind of like Rush Limbaugh. So I don't understand Tucker Carlson as much as you do. I was telling you before, I know we're going to talk a little bit about Piers Morgan losing his job in England. And there's of like Morning America. But Black British people, please let us know how we can do the same thing to Tucker Carlson in America. So, he's been kind of like on a roll in terms of, saying things. So he was, I think, taking a shot at Biden, who was honoring military, women in the military on Women's International Day. Or I don't know if it's International Women's Day. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But then he just said something like, oh, God, we're totally feminizing, the military. And then I think like a day later, he was also in the news, or maybe the same day, the next day, he started going after a New York Times reporter named Taylor Lorenz, was talking about, she was also, in light of International Women's Day, mentioned the online harassment a lot of women receive. And then Tucker Carlson went after her, saying that you're a privileged journalist. What are you talking about? And then there was a back and forth because this woman worked for the New York Times. There was a back and forth between the New York Times and Tucker Carlson. So there was an AP story on that too. So the military comments prompted Senator Tammy Duckworth, who's from Illinois and served in the military and lost, I think, both of her legs? It was both of her legs in the military in Iraq. She basically told him on Twitter, "F you." I know we can swear on this show, but I'm trying to keep things easy for you. So she basically, she said when she was in the military, and then she went on in her tweet about how when she was in the military, Tucker Carlson was, perfecting his two-step, and then she made some comment about how even without legs, or maybe it was in kind of like inferring that, she goes, even I'm a better dancer than Tucker Carlson. So she went after him. And so I did see that Lynn Sweet, our Washington bureau chief, did alert us to that in her tweet. So that was pretty interesting. I did hear about the Tammy Duckworth tweet, but I didn't know that she started going after his dancing skills as well.
Yeah, or lack thereof. By the way, we've already teased you on the show for not swearing. Isn't that funny? You get teased for not swearing on the show. You're probably the only guest who's been on the show that hasn't sworn. I have vowed not to swear as much. But yeah, when it's a podcast, you can say whatever you want. We don't
swear that much. I don't think you're someone that, I don't know. I feel like you don't swear that much from what I know.
Well, I don't swear much. Every now and then it pops out. If I may, my mom near the end of her life really turned into a potty mouth. And I think as people get older, I want to say they tend to swear more. This is just, the inhibitions that limited them their whole life. Blank that, almost dropped it. But I just was kind of like raised. I was like you. You're not supposed to swear when you're speaking in the public. It's not the right thing to do. You're not supposed to swear when you're not supposed to write the word out when you write your articles. And so I like wrestled with this as all around me, just, everybody was swearing. And just, it's just, I know, Rummana, I've had many conversations with you off there. You are not a swearer. You don't. It's just not something you do.
My mom thinks but I'm not. Like, I say like certain words, but I don't swear that much. And, my mom thinks I do. It's funny because, I don't know, as a child of immigrants, my parents would be like, oh, if they heard, if I said the F-bomb, they would probably like ground me, even if I was in my 20s. I just never, and I actually, it's really funny because my mom never, swore. They used words, but I'm like, oh, you guys swear all the time. My mom's like, that's not a real swear. And then I learned like Urdu swear words or Hindi swear words from like watching an art movie about this gangster in India, this female gangster in India. And I told my mom, I'm like, oh, that's how you say, like, my mom's like, I don't say those words because no women in my family say these words. But, like I learned the F word through like movies and stuff like that. My parents weren't huge swearers. But yeah, I don't know. As a child of immigrants, my parents are like, no, you don't swear. But I do swear. And they say there are studies, apparently, they say that if you swear, you're smarter.
Really?
Yeah, I think they said there's something about like people who swear tend to be more intelligent.
What's the correlation? I don't see the obvious correlation.
I don't know. I forgot. But I try to refrain from swearing. But when I'm really angry, I might swear. If I'm really mad at someone, I don't think I swear at people that much. Like, I don't call people.
Well, clearly, I've already had fun with this one, but clearly Tammy Duckworth feels some of the same restraint. So as a veteran who paid a huge price for her service, the loss of both legs when the helicopter she was in was shot at and crashed, as a veteran who's paid that huge sacrifice, she was clearly upset, and justifiably so, at Tucker Carlson's comments because they're just so insulting and degrading. Yeah. But even as upset as she was, she couldn't go full out. So she didn't spell out, I just got to kick it. Come on, Tammy, let it go. Because, by the way, she served in the military. I guarantee you the F-bomb was flying everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
When she was.
I think it's because she's a public figure. It's kind of like Obama. It's like, he's on his podcast. I think he does swear on the podcast, not like really major swear words, but I think he like let out some swear words the last podcast I was listening to. It's kind of like you don't do it when you're serving as president. You're not, you could see Obama swearing like off, or even Trump. I don't know. Trump probably did swear on his Twitter feed, but I think it's just because, they're the president. They're not going to swear. I mean, in journalism, we all know that everybody swears. It's just kind of like, the newsroom, everybody's swearing left and right. But I kind of feel like with this discussion about toxic culture, I think it's kind of toned down a little. People don't kind of scream and swear as much as even when I started in the 90s, like some of the editors that would swear that it was like they had Tourette's, but now I feel like it's a little less acceptable. I don't think I think it would trigger a lot of millennials if they were swearing left and right. But I think in a way it's good, because sometimes people would be swearing and berating other people and trying to use that to rile them up and become better journalists. But I don't think that's necessarily a good tactic all the time.
Well, I'm with the millennials in this one. And by the way, I always say this, I make fun of millennials all the time, but a lot of the things that champion, I applaud them for championing, and I wish I had the guts to do it. So it's all love for me and millennials. Plus, I'm turning them all the time for help with my computer and stuff. So I got to be nice to them.
I get annoyed with some millennials sometimes, but I agree with you. I mean, just as a woman of color, the things, we have discussions in our newsrooms and things that I felt all my life, they're just saying it and they're calling people out for it. And why not? I think those are good things. And so I do have respect for a lot of millennials. I mean, I joke around about them all the time, but there's millennials in my life and they're smart as anybody else. And, even though I'm a Gen X and I make fun of boomers and millennials, but for you. Gen
X. All right, but now I will say this is the point I was going to make. I'm with them 100% when it comes to abusive behavior by bosses in a work environment. It's not the military. The military takes pride in just sort of like breaking you down and rebuilding you as a soldier. But when you go to work for a newspaper, you're not going to work for a military organization. Your editor is not your drill sergeant. You didn't sign up to be broken down and recreated as a new human being. No, that's inappropriate. I'm with the military. I had oh my goodness, I had a boss not too long ago threw a tirade, F-bomb flying. I'm like looking at him like, you are out of your freaking mind. But you got to be calm because the guy is so insane at that moment. You don't know what he's going to do. I think it's really inappropriate. I applaud the millennials for demanding that there's more civility in the work environment. So, with the millennials on that one. And I teased Tammy Duckworth for dropping the U and the C out. Come on, Senator Duckworth, you can do it. I know you can write that U and the C. Let Tucker Carlson really know what you think about him. All right, let's go. I need you to take the deep dive on the Royals and the interview with Oprah from A to Z. You watched it, so I didn't have to watch it. Thank you very much, Rummana. Although I've watched selective clips of it. I'm a huge fan of Oprah Winfrey. I just got to put that out there right now. I've always just kind of admired her. Just the way she built her brand. I give her so much credit. So I applauded Oprah in the little snippets I saw. It was classic Oprah, classic Oprah interview. What was your thoughts about that interview? Go ahead.
So I'm like you. I didn't watch the interview until like after reading about it. So I knew everything that was going to happen. I just loved all the reactions because it was like it. I mean, people are still reacting to it. A lot of people who for me, for example, who I'm Indian. My parents have always talked about how evil the British people are, especially the royal family. Anybody that has any connection to any colonized country, everybody's like, oh, people are realizing the royal family is racist now and evil now. But Meghan Markle, there was like a few snippets where she talked about how there was someone in the royal family who was concerned about the color of the baby's skin. That was what stuck out for me. And I'm like, oh my God, that kind of sounds like Indian people, by the way, because there's a lot of colorism in India. So people worry about what color skin the baby will be. So a lot of Indian people are saying things like, oh, I guess it's like being an Indian family. So, a lot of people felt sympathy for Meghan Markle. Her and Harry are going to be fine. Like, I don't know if you heard, but they went, after they left England and they cut off ties, or I don't know if it's cutting off ties technically, but just left their royal duties. They went to go live with Tyler Perry. And I was telling my friends, I'm like, Tyler Perry probably has like a huge house. So I said, I bet they had like everything they wanted in that house. I go, it's one thing if they moved in with Mick and I would feel bad because then they'd have no place to stay. But, I think they'll be fine financially. But some of the stuff, I know Meghan Markle, and I'm not a huge royal family like follower, but I did read about Meghan Markle and a lot of the racist stuff that was said about her when she was in England. I think when her baby was born, there was a radio host that said it was going to look like a monkey. And they've had I think they said straight out of like Compton when she was going to marry, Harry. So it's like all this stuff was like terrible. I mean, you could say that you don't like her, but you can't say that kind of behavior is acceptable. Like, talk about acceptable behavior. So of course I'm like, after everybody, like my friends, my sisters, like everybody's talking about it, I'm like, okay, now I got to watch the interview. The one thing about the Oprah interviewers, like when I saw it on cable, like on demand, you couldn't fast forward the commercials. So you had to sit through the commercials. And it was funny because like, I think the British people who are watching it got the same commercials, and they're just stunned by the commercials that we have for medications. That's what people in England were talking about. Like, that was trending on Twitter for them. So I thought the interview, Oprah's like a master. She's a master at interviewing people. And we were just kind of thinking like Oprah shouldn't be shocked that, because she was really shocked when Meghan said that, they were asking about the baby skin tone and said that the baby wasn't going to receive security. And Oprah's like, oh, what? And then all my friends are like, she's the one that got kicked out of Hermes, like in Paris. So she should know that, racism still exists. So I think it was a, cultural moment. I talked to a friend of mine, my coworker, Stefano Esposito, and he's a huge fan of the royal family. So I asked him, I'm like, I'm surprised you're not saying anything about the interview. And he told me, he was fed up. He's like, there's a pandemic going on right now. Is this what people care about? There's people dying. I kind of laughed that he was the one that was like, I don't care about this stuff right now. So I think it was like a good distraction. And it was definitely interesting to hear and about AP stories coming out like every hour, not every hour, I'm exaggerating, but just about the fallout and the discussions that's leading to, because there's also like an article that I saw that like black people in England were not shocked that the royal family said these kind of things. So it's kind of funny, like the discussions that people are having, it's kind of like the discussions that we've been having in the wake of George Floyd as well, even though this is more of a, I guess I'm putting in quotes, frivolous subject matter.
Well, I'm going to disagree with your friend from the Sun Times that I don't think the issue of race in England is a frivolous subject matter. And
the royal family.
Yeah. And listen, I don't know why you could call the royal family a frivolous subject matter. It's like, that's their system that they've had for centuries. I mean, it's the way of life in England. They accept the queen and the king, and I find it very bizarre. I find it very bizarre that we in the United States would have an obsession with the king and the queen. I thought that's what the Revolutionary War was about. But the one thing that I found really interesting, get your thoughts on this, Darlene Glanton, the Tribune columnist, wrote a very good column. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but she was talking about the notion of people being biracial. And Meghan Markle always identified herself as biracial, which is absolutely her right. Obviously, it's her identity. But then she marries into the royal family, and as you just pointed out, suddenly she's black, and suddenly there's all these jokes and there's racist jokes, and it's like, in terms of in white people's minds, you're black.
Uh-huh.
And what's your thoughts about that in terms of racial identity and how white people view people of color? Go ahead.
I'm not shocked at all because, as long as you have, I guess wasn't that the one drop rule like a long time ago? It's the same kind of attitude. I mean, I remember when I had a colleague who was African American when Barack Obama was elected president, and we were talking about him, and she said, he's black. I'm like, oh, he's biracial. Actually, it wasn't like a serious conversation. But then she was just like, you know what? When people look at him and Americans look at him, they think black. So I call him a black man. And so she's like, that's the way people are going to treat him, like a black man. So people can identify themselves as however they want to. But when they see that person or they know that that person is like part African American, it's like they become black all of a sudden. Unless they are someone that's like white passing. I guess, Meghan Markle's always said, about her being a person of color. Unless someone never talks about it, then people don't bring it up. But as soon as someone brings it up and says, I am biracial, my father or mother was African American and my other parent was not African American, then it becomes something that people talk about. Yeah, and it just shows that how racist our society is.
Absolutely. And then the sort of corollary to that is just the political fallout to the interview. We may have mentioned this before the show, where if you're a MAGA supporter, all of a sudden now you're with the royal family. Because how dare the royal family be accused of racism? This is amazing. In fact, Tucker Carlson started, he didn't believe that she was really suicidal. Automatic. This gets into Piers Morgan country. Yeah. And what a bizarre world where, like, let's assume that most people agree with your friend at the Sun-Times that this is a frivolous matter, the royal family. But as soon as somebody in the royal family is accused of racism, MAGA is automatically on the side of the royal family. How dare they accuse the queen? Yeah. They're like offended that the queen be accused of racism. Like, very bizarre how the political realm this thing falls out.
I guess because the royal family is like super white. It's like they've been always super white. And so, and the thing is, like, one of the things that I find funny, and then I had another former colleague who was British, and I was like, God, that family looks terrible. And I think we've been seeing memes about how, like, why were they worried about what Meghan's baby looked at? Look at them. Have they ever looked at themselves? And so there's always been jokes like that. My mom, Indian people, it's really funny because Indian people are also fascinated with the royal family, and they're colonized by the royal family. When you go to India, there's still things named after certain queen, like Queen Victoria. And my mom used to call my niece when she was born. She used to call her Queen Victoria because she said she was so cute. But then I looked up Queen Victoria, and I'm like, Mom, I go, you need to stop calling her that. Look how Queen Victoria looks. I know it's really bad, but it's funny. I mean, as someone who's like, have parents who were raised in India, the first time I went to England with my family, my dad, we went to the museum and we saw the really famous diamond. It's called the Kohinoor diamond, and it's like huge and it's beautiful. And it has like, it's presented in this, museum. I'm forgetting where, and I know where it is, but I'm just like, it's on the top of my head. And my dad was so mad because it said on the plaque, it said that it was gifted by India. And my dad's like, they stole it. And my dad was just mad the whole time. And we're like, why are you getting so mad? And he's like, because half the stuff he said more than half the stuff is stolen. And they keep saying it's a gift. And so now it's like when you're raised with parents who grew up, in India, and they're talking about the British and the royal family, then you're kind of used to it. So it is kind of interesting. I did wake up in the middle of the night to watch Diana and Prince Charles get married when I was a little girl. I have to, little girl, me and my older sister, we got up, we told our parents to wake us up. It's really embarrassing now because I remember I thought it was like so beautiful. Like, I was like, oh, look at Diana and her dress. And now that I'm older, I'm like, ew, why would you marry Prince Charles? He was 35 at the time. She was 19, and I just didn't.
Woody Allen country.
Yeah.
I not quite, but almost. On this position, I'm 100% with your friend from the Sun-Times, Esposito. I was like him, man, back in 1981. I didn't want to hear about the royal wedding. Are you kidding me? What do you care about the royal wedding? I would go around and everybody, so many people I knew are like, thank God her dress is like so. And I just, no, I didn't have much patience for the royal wedding in 1980. I didn't really get into the whole Lady Di thing. This is confession time.
Do you remember when she came to Northwestern in 1996, before she died, maybe a year before she died? Everybody was going crazy. Meghan Markle, by the way, is a Northwestern graduate too. So
I knew that.
So anyway, I remember everybody going crazy when Diana came to Northwestern, and I was like, what's the big deal? Like, I admit, by that point, I mean, I wasn't a little girl anymore. I was kind of over it with the royal family, and then it's just like, I don't know, the fascination with it. But I admit, I did watch. I just wanted to see the video, the interview myself. I knew what was going to be said, but it was just interesting to see. And I feel like Meghan Markle is definitely smarter than Harry. That's another thing that I got from it.
Okay. By the way, true confession time on the Ben Joravsky Show. 10-year-old Rummana Hussain was watching the royal, or 9-year-old, whatever she was. All right, so we'll close with this. No ducking, no dodging. I want you to come tell it like it is. Piers Morgan, was he a victim of cancel culture? Was his culture canceled? Go.
Did he quit himself, didn't he? Or did he get...
Yes. He quit himself.
He wasn't he didn't have to quit. So I don't think he was a member of cancel culture. He's been saying stuff that's kind of insane for a long time. I mean, he said that he didn't believe that Meghan Markle was suicidal, and I think everybody went after him. And then Sharon Osbourne said that she, like, you know, she was on his side, and then has given an apology since, because everybody came after her too. But
wait, I missed the apology.
Yeah, she apologized. Like, you know, she apologized to I think, to the African American community, because she was becoming adamant. I think she got into argument with someone who was African American on her show, and she was just defending Piers Morgan. I don't know the extent of it, but I just saw the latest that she's since apologized. But I don't think Piers Morgan is a victim of cancel culture. He'll probably get another job. He didn't have to quit. Didn't he, like, get up off of the set and just said, I quit? You can't self, if anything. So
you know what? I get grief from my guests all the time. They're always giving. Do you ever see me walk away when some guest gives me a hard time? More often than not, they're right. Yeah, you got a point there. So yeah, I had no sympathy for him at all. And again, I just don't like the knee-jerk response to just defend the royal family from an accusation of bigotry is so bizarre. I mean, what world do you think you're living in?
Yeah.
Like, haven't you ever been at Thanksgiving dinner and you heard what your uncle had to say about black people when black people weren't around? I mean, now you act like you didn't hear it? I was like, I don't get it. You know what white people say about black people when black people aren't around? Now you act surprised? Well, that's really unfair. The Queen would never say anything like, how do you know?
Well, actually, Meghan says the Queen was very nice to her. So I think it's between Prince Charles and William who made the comment.
Nobody wants to throw the Queen under the bus because she's like 96 years old. Okay.
Meghan said that the Queen was very nice to her.
All right. Well, if Meghan says so.
I think it's either William or Prince Charles who made the comment about the baby. That's my guess. I'm guessing Prince Charles.
By the way, what a dumbass comment.
Yeah, it is.
What a really dumbass comment.
It's a terrible comment. It's like, just you want to make sure the child is healthy and happy. Like, who cares what complexion? Well, it just shows that race, colorism is a problem.
Yeah, it could be the brother. You're right, because he probably is jealous because he wants to marry me. Here we go. Throw that one out there. He wishes he married. That's a twisted, weird family. I would say I don't want to be at their Thanksgiving dinners, except they're Brits and they don't have Thanksgiving dinners. All right, we'll close with Rummana's recommendation, and I'm lost right now, Rummana. I don't have a show I'm watching. I found WandaVision so triggering. I just had to say, I just couldn't stand WandaVision. I watched this show, and it's like, at the end, I was like, man, Marvel Comics, that's just not for me, and so it's ever since I watched it, now I'm like afraid. Am I going to have another WandaVision experience? I've been triggered.
You didn't like my show, Alice in Borderland, the recommended show, but try Wayne. I think you'll like Wayne.
Wayne, okay.
Wayne, you will like, because you said you liked the first 10 minutes of Alice in Borderland of like these 20 somethings, just kind of, this one's about a teenager. So I think you might like this, the teenager, but the lead is Irish. So sorry.
I'll get over that. I'm working on that.
He's a great Boston accent. I think he does. I think he does a great job. But I think you'll like Wayne. Try Wayne.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to recommend to you, to try Wayne next.
All right. I'm going to try Wayne. And your review of Coming to America, I'm going to see that tomorrow. Go ahead.
I thought it was good. But I don't know if you saw the reviews. I know you don't believe in reviews, but they were kind of mixed. I thought it was good. I was so young when the first one came out. I was a teenager, and I do remember. The thing is, it was such a memorable movie. Even though I saw it once, maybe, I just remember, you remember the characters, you remember the scenes. So it's definitely made for people who remember the first movie, because there's characters and scenes that are going to remind you of the first movie. You'll get triggered in a good way, I guess. Whole barbershop scene. I thought it was good. It was like, all the actors are really great. The woman who plays Eddie Murphy's oldest daughter is actually a DePaul graduate. She was the one in If Beale Street Could Talk. She does a great job. I think everybody did a good job. I thought it was a fair movie. I thought 2.5 stars. It was funny enough, but would I say this is like the funniest ever? And God, this is like so wonderful. I wouldn't say that, but Eddie Murphy, again, he has that whole barbershop scene, because doesn't he play like every single character?
Yes.
In the barbershop. So there's a scene involving that. I know a lot of people were, the way that, the whole thing is that he finds out like a daughter can't be the heir to the throne. And he finds out that he has a son in New York, and his son was conceived via like a drug rape. And so I know I've seen a lot of chatter on Twitter about people, how they kind of were offended by that. So I can understand that. I totally can understand that. Leslie Jones is in it. I think she stole a lot of the scenes, but a lot of people thought, I also saw a lot of commentary about how they thought that her character was stereotypical for like a dark-skinned Black woman. So there's comments on that. So I'm just reading a lot about it. I think you'll find it. I think you'll like it. You probably loved the first one, didn't you?
Yes.
So
and let me just say this. I'm going to throw this out at your response. And you're going to probably accuse me of being prejudiced or whatever. I'll let it fly. I do not trust film critics when it comes to comedies. I think part of the problem is that film critics see so many movies. Every day they're watching a movie, and one movie melds into the other. And I just feel as though they can't appreciate a good comedy. And plus, a lot of them, there's just a gap between what they think is funny, and I'm just speaking for myself, what I think is funny. I'm just thinking of like Booty Call. I'm thinking of these 90s comedies that I missed because I was raising kids at the time. And then I went back and watched them. I thought they were hilarious. I just watched Serial Mom again last weekend, which is a John Waters. It got panned by the critics. And I was like, I tell this to my wife all the time. You cannot trust a critic when it comes to a comedy. It's just, they don't get it. They are always ripping Adam Sandler. I love Adam Sandler comedies. I love Eddie Murphy. I just think he's hilarious.
I'm a little picky with my comedies, because I feel like comedies are very hard to do. They're not. I think it's like a really big talent to be a good comedian. And I think Eddie Murphy is a good comedian. But I think comedies for me are like horror movies. Like there's very few horror movies that really scare me. So I kind of feel like with comedies, there are very few comedies that really make me laugh. But I mean, I laugh. I mean, I'm not saying I was totally not laughing at this, but it's like I think it takes a really good comedy to make you laugh. But I think anybody who's an Eddie Murphy fan is gonna find, you're gonna find it fun. Like even me, I'm like, I didn't sit there and watch it and go, God, what a waste. I wasted my time.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way. So I think you'll like it. You can let me know what you think.
I'll let you know. And your credibility right now for horror films is at an all-time high because of Train to Busan, which I cannot recommend to people enough. Great great zombie flick, maybe the greatest zombie flick of all time. That could be a debate. I may do a whole show on zombie flicks with Sergio Mims. All right, Rummana, stay safe and sound. As I told you, I got my first shot yesterday. A couple weeks, I got my second. And I'm telling you and Mick, when I get these shots, I want you to get your shots as soon as they start giving them to Generation Xers. And then we're going to go to that restaurant on Tui in your beloved Lincolnwood. That Greek place, I forget the name of it. And but we got to be healthy. Yes.
Yep.
So we have to be healthy. All right, Rummana, stay safe and sound. Talk to you next week. All right.
Take care, guys.
All right. That's the great Rummana Hussain every Friday on the Ben Joravsky Show, Chicago Sun-Times editor and columnist. Any updates for me, Dennis?
None. That's a week of Ben Joravsky shows, everybody. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews at chicagoreader.com and wherever else you download podcasts. Also, you can reach us online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Send us an email if you'd like, BennyJShow@gmail.com. Dragonslayer19. I forwarded your email to Ben when we got today's show going. He's going to give your email a read, and we may read it on the program on Tuesday. Call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. We have a phone number, 708-658-4788. 708-658-4788. Call us. Leave us a voicemail. We would love to hear from you. Also, you can become a Benhead. That's right. You can go to chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, Jorav as in victory, SKY, and support the Ben Joravsky Show, a 3-tiered system that we have at chicagoreader.com. You can become an Alley member, an Avenue member, or a Boulevard member. For more information, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, Jorav as in victory, SKY. And also, it's available now, Ben's Greatest Hits book at chicagoreader.com. Yes, Stephen, we saw your email as well. I think we read Stephen's email on the show. But yeah, reach out to us, become a Ben head, and all that good stuff. I think we're done, Ben.
All right, I want to thank Rummana Hussain. Great job as she does every Friday. Of course, the man, the myth, the legend, pride of joy at Alton, Illinois, without whom the show would be possible. And as Rummana will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. Have a great weekend, everybody.
How did you
You have to be a good neighbor.
How did you
You have to be a good neighbor.
How did you
March continues to be a contrast to last month. Average temperatures this week range from the mid-40s in northern Illinois to the mid-50s in southern Illinois, between 5 and 15 degrees above average for this time of the year. March-to-date temperatures have been between 2 and 10 degrees above average, with the largest departures in western Illinois. This has been the 5th warmest start to March on record in Hancock County, for example, and the warmest since 1974. Several places saw high temperatures in the 70s this week, including 74 in Quincy and 73 in Peoria. This is about 2 weeks ahead of the climatological average first 70-degree day in Peoria.
How did you
You have to be a good neighbor.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.